1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on episode 46, a number that I'm not even going to try to make anything about. We've got a packed episode today. We got topics in the beginning, which, got a few things to talk about. Interesting things happened this week and last weekend. But our segment 3, for the first time in a while, we're bringing back a book review, and not a book about spicy dinosaurs. We're talking about a book that is actually good, and, actually, you know what? Some of those were actually...
Was there any tacos in it? There wasn't any tacos. No.
Implied. But
Implied
again,
tacos.
And
the best kind of tacos.
Very, very minute. But it's what you'd expect in a long-running novel. Anyway, so that's going to be going on. And following up from last week in the media segment, I finished watching the rest of Lucifer. So, and turns out, it was pretty damn good.
And that's why he is now dressed as Lucifer today.
Yeah, I am, for the people who can't see me, which is everyone except Blue, I am currently wearing a red button-down shirt and red gym shorts.
Yep, and the suave haircut. Anyway.
All right, let's get into it.
Which topic to start on today? We have 3 for segment 1.
Let's first of all, because we talked a little bit about YouTube stages last week. The fact that was going to be a thing. So let's start with that. So we tested it out last weekend. We tried doing our own, and it turns out that there's quite a few more than are being shown. Because we did it for close to 2 hours. Recorded it, so that content may go up at some point. But I think the most we ever had was like 1 person or 2 people listening. So we ended up deciding to try and join another one. One that Blue had identified called... do you remember it?
The House of Wisdom.
The House of Wisdom. Okay.
Yeah, which is definitely... You should take that name with a pinch of salt, because... Eesh.
So, we ended up going into a debate channel in there, and it was a discussion on religion.
Also, we should say... We did not go into the main broadcast channel because, frankly, there was about 100 people on a waiting list to get in there. And
yeah,
we
so
there was fuck that. Let's go on a debate channel.
Yeah, we wanted to participate. So went down to a debate channel and ended up talking to 2 European folks. One guy I remember was from Serbia. I don't remember where the other guy was from. But so they were having a debate about religion. Or a discussion about it. And so we went in there, Blue, atheist, me, Catholic.
Well, agnostic, but yeah.
Agnostic. Yeah, sorry, excuse me. Other A word.
It may have come across as atheist, being as I knew very little about the subject matter.
It's one of those things, and it's actually worth pointing out here, that is... often confused, especially by very religious people. They tend to think of atheist and agnostic as the same thing, but they really aren't. I don't know if you want to go into what your thoughts on them, but my thought of them is, atheist is a strong, anti-religious belief. There is no higher power. There is no God. This is all bullshit. Agnostic is more I have no evidence for or against, so I choose to just live my life the way I live my life, kind of thing.
Exactly. I choose to live my life in a good manner, and so that I feel like if there was a higher power and I lived a really good life, then it would be cool. But, I mean, obviously, based on the conversation I had with those peeps in that channel, I'd be going to hell anyway. But...
So, and that's kind of what I wasn't prepared for going into that. I was, I like debating. I like talking. I like talking to just random people on the street. Blue's seen me do this in the UK, and it freaks people out. But we went into that channel, and I was prepared for, a philosophical debate. Let's talk about, the ideas behind it. And maybe we go back to some, religious texts and things like that to kind of provide context. No, one guy was in there, and he, every other second, was interrupting people with Bible quotes.
Yeah.
I think it was the Serbian guy. No, the Serbian guy was the one I wanted to talk to. It was the other guy. But it was just
which. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say the person who was interrupting was very clearly, as I interrupt you, very clearly a devout believer, and any vying from the path that he believes in, he kind of considered to be kind of almost from the tone of voice, he kind of saw it as kind of an unforgivable sin.
yeah,
Which I'm sure
sacrilege.
he would not approve of. Yeah, but I don't know the guy very well. I don't know the guy at all. But yes, he was very vehement in his beliefs. The Siberian guy was also very sure in his beliefs, but
he was willing to have a
in a
debate.
better way.
Yeah, he was willing to talk and discuss and hear why other people thought differently. And I mean, I shouldn't. At no point during this discussion did things get like hostile or angry.
No, I mean, I told the guy to let the other person talk.
Yeah, but that's
I
just
didn't raise my
good
voice.
etiquette. Because the other guy was trying to get something out and he kept interrupting with like, "Oh, but it says this in this verse," and it's like, okay, we get it. It does say that, but I'd like to hear what this man is trying to say. Anyway,
So that's mostly how it went. God.
So the YouTube stages thing, it seems like a very interesting concept, and I think we're going to try another foray, maybe into a different thing, because while it wasn't quite what we were hoping for, it was still an interesting experience, and I personally absolutely love just hearing what other people think and talking to them.
Yeah, I mean, you know how on like Instagram, no, not Instagram, it's a bad example. Like, I don't know, just one of these generic social medias. You get the people who don't care who they're friends with; they'll just hit friend on every single person that comes across.
The stereotype of the person with like 200 Facebook friends and like 2 in real life.
Well, yeah, and he knows like 2 of them. Well, this is kind of what these Discord servers were that were getting the big numbers. They weren't. There was no good content there, alright? I'm sorry. The content was trash.
Volume, what is it? Quantity over quality.
Exactly. But what all these things had in common was that like that House of Wisdom channel had over 1,000 people just in that channel. So just pre-existing coming into it, they had like, let's say that only 1% of those people, actually tuned into it. So that's 10 people. That immediately puts them 10 people above all the other channels, and that's why they got put on the board, and that's why more people join those channels.
Yeah.
Even though, like I said, the content was awful, they were even doing the whole gimmick where if you're in the channel a lot over this week, then there's a chance that we'll give you a free nitro.
Yeah, it's the YouTube giveaway sort of scheme.
Yeah.
Or like the people on the people on YouTube who go like, "Oh hey, the first 10 people who leave a comment or who subscribe to this get like $100 gift card," or something like that.
Yeah.
It's
chance to win a CS:GO knife.
Well, it's something that we've actually discussed a couple times. There's a few ways that I've seen YouTube channels actually grow, and the ones that tend to burn out the quickest are the ones that do that. So I'm just noticing that my hair is sticking up in the back.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a good kickstart to get people off the ground, but I feel like it's
at the end of the day, you need to have stuff that's going to.
The quantity of the person that you want is more important than the. What did I say? The quality of the person is more important than the quantity.
Well, because if people are just there to get the gift card and get a few quick chuckles, they're not going to stick around. Like, there are channels that are, I think, like, they barely get any views, but they used to get tons. And I still watch them because I still genuinely enjoy what they're putting out. And that's what you need to find. So the servers are the same way. Like, what was it last night? Sam was coming in and asking if people had the nitros to like boost his channel because he wants to like get more people in there and get it to grow and stuff like that. And like, I had no idea what the fuck he was talking about, but B, even like now talking about this, I'm starting to kind of understand that maybe it's a way to like attract more members so that maybe he gets on the board or something like that. And just
I thought he was trying to like offer. I thought he was saying that he had a free Nitros like activation key, and he was just wondered if someone wanted it. But I don't think that.
No, he was talking.
The conversation.
There may have been that too, but he was talking about having someone boost his channel.
Right. Yeah. He's also. Hang on. I'm just going to quickly have a look. What's it? What's his channel even?
I have no idea.
Is it Decoy?
I think it's Decoy. But let's not get too deep into that. I don't want to.
Taking a gander at how many people are already in his channel. Already hundreds, I'd say.
Yeah. So that's kind of my point. Is like. And it does seem to be fairly active, but it'd be interesting to see it in the long term if that's how he's trying to grow it. It's the same sort of thing, like if with YouTube channels, with any kind of social media, you don't really want exponential growth if you're doing it through gimmicks, because then you have to keep thinking up gimmicks.
Yeah.
Anyway, this kind of we kind of got a little bit into the weeds.
Yeah,
here.
sorry, I got sidetracked.
There was another topic.
Yes, always another topic. So, I was watching a YouTube video early on in this week about one of my all-time favourite games, Payday 2, and how it's progressing at the moment, because I don't play it much anymore, but it's good to see what they're up to, kind of thing. And I found out that they had introduced on April Fool's Day, they introduced a new melee weapon called the Big Spoon. And yes, it was a comically large spoon, which you could go around and bash policemen with. And that's fine, it's a joke. But obviously it stayed after the April Fools, so it's still in the game today, I'm pretty sure. And if you got 100 kills with the Big Spoon, then you got the Big Golden Spoon, which it was like a better version of the normal spoon, and it also had a chance of setting enemies on fire. Now, as a joke weapon, that's fine. What I think is really not fine is that it is stronger than any other melee weapon in the game.
Oh. So you've got a joke that's more powerful than most of the base equipment.
Yeah, so beforehand, the best melee weapons, at least the ones that I've run with, were like an ice pick if you're going stealthy because it's kind of concealable but also damaging. And then like a samurai sword if you're going balls to the walls. But now it's just better to take a giant golden spoon that can set people on fire. Which is hilarious, I guess, for all of 10 minutes. But then it's like, what's happened to this game?
It's like, what is it? Team Fortress and the hats. Except it's actually game-breaking. And whereas technically those were kind of game-breaking too. People wouldn't play the games. They just trade hats.
But, like, again, I really want to emphasize that I don't mind having comical stuff in the game. There's so many melee weapons. Like, you can literally run around punching people with a wad of cash. That's a melee weapon.
Yeah.
You can just go slap people with a wad of cash. There's a microphone, there's a briefcase, there's like a mic stand, whatever. All funny stuff, boxing gloves. But making it the most powerful thing... God, you don't see it often, but when this happens in games, it really annoys me.
Well, it's game breaking. Balance is important. You don't want a game to be too balanced, because if it's too balanced, then it stops being fun. But you also don't want it completely broken. Like, thinking back, like one of the examples of this that I can think of, the original Halo 1. The pistol in that game was a sniper rifle and a brutal weapon up close. Like, you could, with the pistol, because it had a scope on it, and because it was, like, really, really accurate to the reticule, you could kill people from across the map with that gun. But there were, like, so basically you always wanted, in multiplayer, you always wanted to have a pistol and then one other weapon. Like, it just became the weapon, ironically, it became the sidearm that everyone held on to, and usually the default weapon, unless you had a rocket launcher or a sniper rifle, because those were one-shot kills. Or in my case, a shotgun. My love for the shotgun in video games goes all the way back into my childhood. But it didn't break the game, because by default everyone spawned with one. So it was just what was your secondary weapon that kind of tipped the things. So it's an example of something that was unbalanced, but it balanced itself. This seems like the opposite. It's like you use this weapon or you're a fool.
Yeah.
I don't know.
God, I mean, like I said, I haven't played Payday in a long while, and I know that they have, much like with Rainbow, when originally it was super serious, kind of terrorism game.
Yeah.
Now it's got people running around in Pizza Hut costumes and, like, with jock straps over their face, wielding drills. Like, it's just stupid now. But at least that stuff is all cosmetic. This is actually game mechanic based. Also, it's like the only weapon in the melee weapon in the whole game that can set people on fire. Like, it's just, I don't know. It annoys me when these games, which are kind of pitched on their coolness, their grittiness, whatever. It's like if Resident Evil, they were like, nah, from now on, we're going to give all the zombies bunny ears. And just in the standard game, because we think that's funny and that'll get more people to play the game. And maybe it will, but it will ruin the whole fucking franchise.
I come after you. Fear my staff of bullshit. Yeah. There is a certain appeal to having a game that... they're probably chasing a trend, because, I mean, think about, like, PUBG versus Fortnite.
Yeah.
One of them is extremely serious, and one of them is goofy as hell. And the goofy as hell one ended up taking over, despite the serious one being first. And I think that might just be it. Like,
I don't think it was because of the goofiness, though. I think that was because of it, like the construction part of it, and the fact that... Well, actually, I suppose it would also be down to the fact that parents would let their kids play Fortnite, whereas they wouldn't let them play PUBG.
Yeah, because PUBG actually looks like a serious war game, whereas Fortnite, I don't know, you've got like a bouncing Thanos jumping out of a bus.
Parents aren't going to let you play as a bank robber that shoots policemen, as long as there's a big spoon in the game to whack people with.
Are you kidding me? My mom let me play Grand Theft Auto when I was 13.
Yeah, because she... Well, I was about to say she doesn't give a fuck if you saw the Grand Theft Auto-ness of it, but it wasn't because there was, like, a happy hippo costume in the game. Like, that wasn't what changed it.
Just a funny story. And I don't know how happy she's going to be about me telling this story. But, like, soon after I got it, she decided she wanted to give it a try. And didn't bother playing it. She just got in a car and started running people over on the sidewalk laughing.
Yeah.
It's a very fond memory I have.
Oh God. But yeah, no, that's why I've been peeved about that, and I think it is a thing throughout many games. It's just this one hit a little close to home. God. It's the fucking murky of HOTS. It looks fucking stupid. It shouldn't be in the game, and yet it can kill fucking tanks.
Deceptively overpowered. Yeah, I can see that. Sorry, this is Murky is a character in Heroes of the Storm, a game that we actually discussed recently. He's this little frog thing, got practically no health, but right before death, he can use a shield that just lets him float away and take no damage. And later on in the game, he gets attacks that essentially can take people down with like 20 times his health in a few seconds. Brutally overpowered character if you're playing him right. Absolutely idiotic. Looks dumb, sounds dumb, is dumb, but he's going to kick your ass.
Yeah, there's no point in killing him because you get a quarter of the points for killing him as opposed to a normal hero.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Even after he gets really broken, you get nothing for actually beating him.
Yeah, he's a solo laner, so he can basically handle 1 to 2 players by himself whilst clearing a wave of minions. It's just, it's one of those things.
I just realized that came through the mic. I just cracked all of my knuckles, and I'm looking over at Audacity, and it's like, spike, spike, spike.
Rip.
Sorry about that, people who are listening. Hopefully the noise reduction gets rid of that, but probably won't. So
probably not. Alright, ready for the last topic?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one we were having yesterday. And we kind of stopped halfway through because we're like, ooh, this is a good thing to talk about. But I mean, and that is people, when you're playing with friends online, I guess it could be transferred to other things that are not playing computer games. But when, let's say one person is busy and so they can't get on, and the other person goes just a little bit further ahead, and then a little bit more.
Wait.
And then suddenly there's a big difference, and it's not fun anymore for the second player.
It's what I like to call, and I thought of this name yesterday because this is the first game I ever heard of it happening in, because it happened back in college to me, as Portal 2 syndrome. Like, Portal 2, it's a co-op, like, it has a co-op puzzle-solving element, right? If one player has played through it already and the other player hasn't, it's not fun for either player, because the first player already knows how to solve the puzzles but doesn't want to spoil it for the friend, or is an asshole and spoils it for the friend. Either way, it's not that much fun for them, unless they like torturing their friends. The second one, like the person who's playing co-op with them, that person, it's not fun for them because they either have to solve the puzzles solo, which, why are they doing it co-op anyway, or they have an asshole friend telling them the solutions before they can even figure it out. And you see this now in, to a lesser extent, it happens in other games, like, I don't know, Diablo 3. I know a bunch of my college friends got ahead of me in that, and I was basically just like, oh god, okay, whatever, let's take me to the boss, because I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. But you're sorry, just to give an intro, from, like, the first time I've ever experienced this happening was back then. You don't see this so much with competitive games. Maybe somebody's more skilled and it takes the other person time to get up. It's more about...
Unless it's games like CSGO, where we can't play ranked CSGO together unless we play that special mode.
Yeah.
Because if you have a big enough differentiation in your rank, then it just doesn't let you play together. And I'm assuming it's the same with Rainbow, but we're not that far apart in Rainbow.
I still don't understand what the hell happened with CSGO. Can I have a tiny rant about that real quick? We used to play Wingman, which is the dual, like the two-on-two mode. And our scores, we usually finish pretty close to each other in terms of kills. Like, you usually finish ahead of me, but it's not by much. Like, it's not like I'm not pulling my weight in the game. And somehow, you end up at, like, one of the highest ranks in the game.
Globally, the highest rank.
And I end up at the literal lowest rank in the game.
Silver one.
And we're always playing together. And it's just, what the hell is happening here?
Yeah. It's because the game is like, okay, you got a silver one and a global elite. The silver one knows what he's getting into by playing with the global elite, so we're going to put them against someone who's only slightly less leveled than the global elite to balance it out. And yeah, so you'd end up facing against, like, master whatever class.
Yeah.
And even when we won, which we quite often did, you wouldn't level up because you get the same amount of points for winning against a silver as you do for winning against a master.
Which is idiotic. But, sorry.
Yeah.
I interrupted to go on my own private tangent there. But you're thinking more specifically about some of the more like open world kind of games.
Yes, so ones where you have typically a home base and you progress the base through ages and that kind of thing. So that and you'll have a community of friends.
Think Minecraft.
If a segment of those friends then went off and, killed the Ender Dragon and got elytras and fought the Wither, and then the other people came back online and they're like, okay, the village looks completely different than it did before. I don't know, maybe someone's taken some of my stuff and I have no idea about it. All these other things have changed. Equipment's way better now for everyone. What's the point in me playing?
Yeah, your village hovel has turned into a skull fortress while you've been away.
Yeah, there's nothing for me to achieve anymore because it's already been achieved for me from while I was offline with my friends doing it.
Yeah.
And it is a horrible thing to happen. And I have been on both sides of it. I don't know if you have, Kaiser. I know you've been on one side of it at least.
I have been on both sides of it. It's happened with so the other side. The Portal 2 thing, that I never played that game, but I had friends who did in college, and that was the thing. Because I never had somebody to play it with because my friends had all kind of paired off and played it before I got a chance to. But I've had it happen to me in Factorio, on the end where like I've had work and stuff like that, and when I left off, we were kind of at the industrial age, irons and smelters and building trains and things, and I get back and they've got this giant fortress with automated gun turrets and robots flying around doing all the construction. And I'm like, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, oh god, I hate those robots.
And so here I am, Mr. like Iron Age man coming in and trying to figure out how the hell all this newfangled technology works, and it was just it was too much too quickly, and so it ended up just kind of not being fun. But by the same token, I'm trying to think, have I done that? I have done that to other people, but it's been on... I used Minecraft as an example, but it was on Minecraft. But I only used my powers to troll. Minecraft's a little bit different, though, because you can kind of... I don't think...
You can isolate yourself in that, can't you?
Yeah, you can. You can kind of... It's like, oh, this place is too developed. I can just go off in the desert and build my pyramid out here.
Although there's only one Ender Dragon, to be fair.
Yeah. Well, that wasn't that
actually, there might be more now, I'm not sure.
That wasn't in the game back when I played it seriously.
True.
If you can ever play that game seriously. But no, I can't offhand think of a time where I've been on the end where I'm the one progressing way too far.
Yeah. And it's not just material progression either. We've discussed this before.
Yeah.
Like, the reason that I don't get anyone in the Hive to play Payday 2 is because I've played it for so long, I know so much about it, even though I could be on even footing with them in equipment, with the stuff that I pick, it would not be the same, it would still be a vast differentiation. And equally on the opposite side, same reason I don't like playing, 7 Days to Die, or League of Legends especially.
Yeah.
It's because there is such a vast differentiation in my knowledge of the game compared to other friends' knowledges of the game that it's just not fun for me to play. Like, they might say, yeah, you just do this, it's fine, easy, and I can do that,
but
I don't know why I'm doing it.
Yeah. And the League of Legends was the example I gave last night when we talked about this, because this is my personal opinion, builds that you can pick up online have ruined that game for new players. Mm-hmm. Because back there were no build sites, like sites like NAOPGG, sites like Mobifier, all these sites that you can pick up builds for characters and look at how pros play them and stuff like that. All this analytics, they have ruined the game for new players, because everyone just looks up. They're like, I want to try out this guy, so they just pull up a build. Okay, this is how I play him, and they just follow the instructions. Whereas back when I actually had a lot of fun with the game, from 2010 to 2014, which is when I was probably the most active in it, I those sites really didn't exist, or they weren't big enough, so people were still making up their own builds, trying new plays on the fly, improvising, and that made it fun. That made it spontaneous and interesting. Now people just pull up a build and they don't go through that process. They don't actually learn how to play a character because they didn't go through that process. They looked up instructions, read them, and just play it that way. And some of the more creative players will eventually pick up and start to think outside the box, but most of them are just every game, every single way, they follow the instructions, and they get pissed when people don't follow the instructions.
Yeah. So my similarity is
sorry, just to I realized I didn't tie it back to what you were saying, though. That is the issue when you've been, even competitive games, when you've been playing them for years, and then somebody brand new comes in, they don't have that background knowledge. Even if the game starts out on even footing every single time, you've got people who, they know the gameplay, they know the builds, they know the characters, and the people who are just coming in and they just want to that fresh virginal experience of learning the game is lost.
Yeah. I've played with a lot of people on Payday in the past that I've met through Payday. I mean, because obviously it's a cooperative game.
Yeah.
There has to be some level of talking to each other, whether it's, I need someone to get me up, or I need ammo, or whatever. And I have met quite a few people who are really good at the game, but it was because of external sources. So when there's a big patch, I remember back in the day, it's gone through phases of what weapons are the best weapons to use, the best class of weapons. So at one point, shotguns were just amazing, and I was really enjoying going around with a double-barreled shotgun, because that's just what I'd play naturally anyway, because I love double-barreled shotguns. And then there was a patch, and suddenly pistols became ridiculously overpowered. I mean, ridiculously overpowered. And so that's all you'd see people doing, was running around with these pistols and just getting all the kills, doing all the objectives. And I was kind of fine with that up until the point when people started complaining that I wasn't pulling my weight. Because I was pulling my weight, I just wasn't using pistols.
You weren't following the meta.
Yeah, I was playing the game as a game. It's not a ranked online competitive game. It's basically a single player game that you can play with buddies online.
Yeah.
And I don't know, just play the game with the shittest weapons if as long as it's fun. Doesn't matter. There's a gun called the broomstick pistol, which is an old World War II German pistol kind of thing.
Yeah, like a Ruger.
You can fit that thing with a sniper rifle barrel and a guns, a rifle stock, and you can run around with akimbos of them. And it's fucking hilarious and great fun. And I mean, okay, back when that did was literally 0 damage. Okay, not so much, because then you can actually kill anyone. But I don't know, just the great wide variety of things that are available in that game. And I mean, there is so many different guns. Don't just limit it down to, one class of guns.
Yeah.
Or, a giant golden spoon that sets people on fire.
And I'm going to go back to League of Legends talking about this. This is the other issue with that, is that now Riot Games, the parent company that made the game, they've sort of followed the trend of people just wanting to follow these rigid paths, right? And so a lot of their patches in the game have made it more rigid, so that even the creative players that kind of wanted to go outside the box, now the game is actually less functional if you go outside the box. I remember a build that Adam did. Like, this was back in 2013 or 2014, and he did this for fun every now and again. There's a mage character called Brand, and he's excellent, if you build him magic damage, but he has a very quick stun. Like, if he hits somebody with a spell and then hits him with another spell very quickly, they get stunned.
Yeah.
And he can do that very easily, and it normally does a lot of damage. But Adam used to play him like attack damage, physical damage instead of magic, and build him with attack speed. So essentially what would happen is he'd do that very quick stun. The stun would do basically no damage because it was...
No magic damage, yeah.
But he had so much attack speed and physical damage that then, while they're stunned, he would just shred them. I tried doing that build, a year or so back, just to see if it still worked. And it did kind of work, but they've nerfed mages, reduced the viability of mages going anything except for magic. So it's kind of followed a route of the players got less creative and the players got less open to the idea of doing things other than what is the correct way to do it. And so the creators of the game made the game itself less able to permit that sort of behavior. I don't know. All right.
But yeah, you get our kind of gist on this, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, let's end it there. That's a good point to end on. Both of our sad faces.
Yeah.
We're getting mired in nostalgia.
It's fine. The next 2 segments we're going to be loving it, I think.
Oh my god, yeah. So yeah, stick around. Next set, we got the rest of the podcast. This is going to be a packed podcast. We probably are going to go long on this one, but that's fine because we got a lot to talk about. So, thank you everyone for listening. This is going to be the end of segment 1 of the TMCJ podcast. We are going to move on to segment 2 in just a moment. Thank you all for listening. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We are on segment 2, our media segment, and Blue made an attempt to throw me off this time, but...
You smiled. I saw the smile.
I was smiled because Discord cut out at the exact moment you did it, and so I saw you do it.
Max it out.
I saw you do it, but I didn't hear it.
You missed the duck noodle.
I did. Anyway, so we've both got one thing to talk about for this segment. I want to talk about Lucifer. Blue has been reading a book, so since we're talking about a book in the 3rd segment, thought we'd start off with the book, so we get book, show, book. So, Blue, take it away.
So, the book, Origins of Bluebear. This is where I got my username from many, many years ago, when I was but a child. From this book by a German author called Walter Moers. It's called The 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebear. And it's just that. It's a... what's it? The quote on the front, I think, describes it pretty well. Moers' creative mind is like J.K. Rowling's on ecstasy. So...
That's
on the front of the book.
That's a thick book, by the way. You guys can't see this book, but it looks like a dictionary. The thing is what is that, 1,000 pages? 500?
It's just over 700. Yeah, pretty big.
Right in between my 2 guesses.
It looks, from the title and from the look of the front cover, it looks like a children's book. It is not a children's book. Within, I don't know. So just the language they use, right? So not talking like adult language where it's rude or crass. But many of the words I still don't know because they're very, I guess the word's eloquent.
Yeah. Esoteric.
Very
even.
snobby words sometimes. But for the most part, it's readable. It's just the occasional bit. And some of the themes, if you really think about some of the themes, they're quite dark. but they're pitched in like a almost cartoony manner.
Sort of like like Grimm's fairy tales.
Grimm fairy tales.
No, Grimm.
I can't.
Like the
Grimm.
Yeah. Sorry, should clarify. Not Grimm as in dark. Well,
Yeah.
I wonder if that's
mean,
where
they
the
are.
word comes from.
Maybe. But Grimm, then that sense is one M, not two. Who knows? Anyway, so the book starts out, and there's this tiny little blue bear floating on the edge of the largest maelstrom on the planet. He's like floating on the edge of it, inside of a half a nutshell. So just that's just to give you a perspective of size when this blue bear is somehow born. We have no idea how he got there. It's just how it happens. And he's picked up by mini pirates, who are like the best sailors in the sea, but they can never invade another person's ship because they're like less than a foot tall. And so they may be the best at being a pirate, but they're also, tiny and not very offensive. So he spends like a year or two with them. He can't speak at this point. He doesn't understand anything. They teach him how to tie knots and how to sail. But that's about it. And so eventually he gets too big for the boat, and so he's dropped off at an island. And on that island, it's the first time he ever sees night properly, because on the ship there was always like lanterns and stuff lighting up the area. And because the mini pirates were like terrified of ghosts kind of thing. So he gets to this island, it goes pitch black, and basically, night terrors, ghosts appear and start watching him, and he cries. Like this child, he can't speak, he just starts crying. And then he works out the ghosts like the fact that he's crying, and he actually puts on performances for the ghosts every night. They bring him food if he does this like heart-wrenching, sobbing, crying show every night for them. So you can see how it's a bit fucking weird, right? The book.
Yeah, no, but I like it. It's got a very fantastical kind of feel to it, almost ethereal. Like it's close to what we know, but it's still like just otherworldly enough to really hook you. Yeah,
and so eventually, he's looking at himself in like the reflection of a pond one day, and he's like, "Man, I'm basically turning into these things. I'm becoming vain. I'm demanding more from my audience," because he becomes not afraid of them, and he's like honing his craft of learning to cry. And he starts hating himself, and he's like, "No, I've got to leave this island." So he straps together some trees, sets out with a rudimentary sail, and just starts drifting. And there's this, like, the biggest ship in the world kind of passes by him, and no one notices his calls because there seems to be something strange about the ship. But it goes back to that way later in the book, I know. And yes, he's drifting along in the sea, and he starts hearing voices. And it turns out there are these two, how can I say this, like special waves called babbling brooks, which they are known for basically finding people lost at sea, driving them insane, and getting them to drown themselves. You can see how this is very dark, despite it being comical.
Well, yeah, but
I don't keep saying
most.
that.
So, just can I a little tangent here?
Go for it.
The reason most children's stories, like back in the day, were fairly dark was that like it was supposed to be like, not supposed to be, but it was a fantastical and like fantasy kind of way to teach children the reality that there are a lot of dangers out in the world. Like without explicitly telling them that there are dangers out in the world and what those dangers are. Because if you told a child what kind of horrors actually exist in the real world, it would traumatize them. So you guise it in this fantastical fashion, and then so it's the reason, like the big bad wolf in the whole Red Riding Hood story. It's she's walking alone in the woods and the wolf is going to come and eat her and all this other stuff. And it's very clearly a, like, if you think about it, it's a way to teach, young girls that if you go out alone and you're out alone in the forest, that there's a chance that some, essentially a rabid beast of a man might accost you, to put it in gentler terms. Same thing with like all these other, in all of them, in a very storybook fashion, they teach lessons about life. And so yes, while this is very dark, it's dark in the same way that a lot of older kind of children's stories were, in that there's stuff underneath the surface where it's like, yeah, bad things happen, but they happen in a very storybook way to teach. It's a more gentle way to introduce, children to the fact that, although from what you're saying, this is less. I don't know if would you. I'm going to ask you this right now. Would you class this as a children's book, like a young adult book? Is it a book meant for adults? What are your thoughts? You said you read this when
the child's young enough. Like, if you're reading a child a book and they're young enough, it doesn't matter what you're reading them. You can be reading them Shakespeare, and it's just to get them to go to sleep.
That's true.
If a child understood the ramifications of, like, madness and suicide, I might not. I think it's definitely like a book for teenagers, I think.
So, yeah.
I wouldn't say below that.
Young adult kind of. Okay. Got it.
But yeah, so these waves are like trying to drive him insane, but he doesn't understand what the fuck they're going on about, because he doesn't understand English. And so they actually kind of feel like they get kind of depressed talking to him, and they're like, feel a bit sorry, and they decide to teach him how to speak. And over a unmentioned amount of time, I'm not sure how much it was, he learns how to speak, and really quite eloquently, because their whole thing is that they go up and talk to people and drive them crazy, so they're quite good at language.
Yeah, you have to be quite the
linguist.
Yeah, to be able to actually talk someone into that state of mind.
Yeah, so eventually there's like a current and they have to move on, and he's left again on his own in the middle of the sea, and he's running out of resources. And then like a giant... There's a lot of giant things, granted, in this book, but at this point, this is when he is like barely a child, so I guess it makes sense that everything looks larger to him at that time. Imagine like a kind of a mammoth equivalent of a whale, like a huge version of a whale with a single eye and very, very hostile tendencies.
Yeah.
Comes up from below him and is going to swallow him whole. He manages to get up on its back, and his raft is utterly destroyed. So he's looking around and thinking, shit, there's a bunch of harpoons in this thing's back. Maybe I can pull them out in time together, make a new raft. So he's pulling them out, and each time he does, the whale is letting out like a sigh of relief kind of thing. And he finally pulls out the last one, and he's like, great, I've done it. And then he realizes, hang on, I haven't strapped any together, and I've just pulled the last one out of its back. And so it immediately dives. And he's kind of just like, shit. But it left him near an island. And so he swims to the island. The island is filled with the most wonderful fruit and vegetable growths. There's like cocoa pods, there's rivers of milk, there's sap that tastes like gravy, another that tastes like syrup, and all these delicious foods, and he spends again another year there just trying all the different foods. If he eats too much of one thing, it gets replaced by a new thing. It's like this paradise island. There's other animals there chilling out, and just There's even like carnivorous animals, but they don't eat the other animals because they've learned to live in harmony with just eating off the land. And so he does. Go on.
Have you ever read the Odyssey?
Yes.
It has a very similar vibe.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. You're getting there. Yep. Okay, go on.
And after a year, he's become like a gourmand, whatever the fuck the word is.
Gourmet.
He's become very picky. He eats very particular foods. He is eating a lot more. He's eating snacks between his meals, and he becomes largely overweight. And then one day, he's like reaching for something to eat, and the tree like turns to ash in his hands, and the creatures and the birds and the little animals all start like melting away in front of him, and the whole island turns into like a fleshy mound with mouths trying to eat him.
They were fattening him up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the special island type sea creature that fattens up a victim, and it only needs something like, I can't remember what it said, a certain amount of food per year, so it saved him up for the right amount of time, and he was ripe, so decided to eat him. And then he gets saved by a pterodactyl. A fucking pterodactyl comes in and saves him, and the pterodactyl I think is meant to be representative of like kind of like a police, right? So pterodactyls in this world have an inbuilt thing where it's like their job to save other people, but only in the very last second before they get killed.
Okay.
And this particular pterodactyl that picked him up was like, so I noticed you because you're a giant fat blue blob in the middle of an island, basically. I've got really shitty eyesight. You need to be my eyes for the next however long.
Okay, so he becomes... and thus he gets recruited into the cops.
Exactly, he becomes a buddy cop. And that's kind of where I am. I'm like 100 pages in or something. But yeah, very old book. In fact, Captain Bluebear was, after he released this book, it actually got taken up by a German animation thing, and now there's like a Captain Blaubar segment at the end of these children's shows in Germany. It's really cool.
Blaubar. Wait. Yeah. That I mean it. Honestly, I barely wanted to interrupt you because I was just sitting there. I was actually really enjoying the story.
It's just like a weird vomity mesh of creativity.
But the thing is, it started off and it reminded me of like the Grimm's fairy tales, and it had the smack of a children's story. But then, as you went on a little bit further, like I started to like as you went from place to place and challenge to challenge and experience to experience, I started to think, like I said, of the Odyssey, because that's what Odysseus did coming back from the Trojan Wars. The island part really struck home with me because him and his crew, they end up on the island of the Lotus Eaters, and they essentially, it's just these people who do nothing but they chill and they eat the lotus flower and they're happy and they don't have a care in the world, and some of the crew wants to stay there and they do stay there, but the rest of them venture on and venture forth because they need to get home to Greece. Ironically, the people, spoiler alert for those who haven't read the Odyssey, everyone but Odysseus dies.
Yeah.
Except for the crew that stayed behind in the island of the Lotus Eaters. Unless they died there too.
There's a lot of islands in the Odyssey where it's like the women of that the beautiful women of one of the islands.
Yeah.
Who were like cannibals or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, they seduce the men in order to...
yeah, kill them in their sleep or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of those kind of temptation things. And yeah, it's exactly the same with that, where it's teaching kids, I guess, to not be greedy.
And
Um,
if you go back
teaching
to, in
values.
particular, to like ancient stories like the Odyssey,
Mm.
even going back to our conversation last week about the mythologies of like the Norse, Greek, and Roman gods, they were teaching lessons about humanity because you didn't have like a school system that kind of brought people up educated and kind of started them on a somewhat equal footing.
Mm.
You had to like, the stories were meant to kind of teach lessons about life without actually teaching things. So somebody might not know, why, like on a philosophical level, it would be bad to do a certain thing. They would know that, when this god did that sort of thing, then somebody got murdered or there was a tragedy or something like that. God, normally I'm better with an example that I can just pull out and go like, because I know that story. I want to say it was Adonis. No. Anyway, I can't remember. But point being, like that there's value in those. I think even for like young adults and adults, there's value in those kinds of stories.
Yeah, I mean, so just to quickly wrap through all the ones I can think of, leaving the mini pirates, super sad, but it teaches people that you have to move on in life. When it was with the ghouls on the island, it was teaching that, and they even used the word, he saw himself as a prima donna. Like, fame and power can corrupt you.
Yep.
So that's why he had to move on. Helping out a beast that had been harpooned and left him, made him. It put him in a bad place, but the place was at least land. Like, he was running out of water and he needed somewhere to be. So kind of karmic system there. Don't be greedy, obviously, with the food. And now it's kind of like a giving back to the community kind of thing that he's got with the pterodactyls.
So, yeah. All right. I don't want to dwell on it too long. You've made
No,
me
because we've got
kind.
stuff to talk about.
As you
But
continue reading it, I'd love to hear more as you get like further into the book, because I actually
Absolutely.
really enjoyed listening to that. So Lucifer. This is the show. Ironically, the show isn't that philosophical, but we waxed philosophical for like a half hour last podcast.
We could talk about gods all day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, mythology, history, it's all something that it's something that we both have, an interest in. So I have to say I did not give the show enough credit, like last week. Well, I was very hesitant because I was thinking, oh God, this is a weird turn. Whenever a show introduces God, there's like you've introduced something that's like completely supposed to be
Infallible.
omnipotent and all powerful and everything, and you're introducing it into a show where you've already made the devil a Californian that needs therapy. So, where are you going to go with this?
Yeah.
And I have to say, they actually went an interesting direction with it. So, the rest of the series, it goes on. They introduce some like political machinations that are going on up in heaven between the different angels. Michael, the archangel. What? Sorry. What?
I was just going to say, you totally should have talked about this with the religious guys.
Oh my God, this show? No, the Bible quote guy would have given me like 18 million reasons why that just watching the show would have sent me to hell.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Anyway, so it goes on, and there is an absolutely amazing musical episode. I'm not a fan of musicals, but essentially they have God played by a discount Morgan Freeman, who like is actually really good. Like, this guy has a voice that like a bass drum would be jealous of. Like, it's like just like he's the kind
You
of.
don't think it's altered?
No, I don't actually. I really don't. It doesn't sound like it was altered at all, at least. Anyway, so throughout the episode, God is like, they make a point of the fact that God is very bored by like kind of the way mortals do things, and so just without anyone knowing it, except for the other like Celestials, the other Immortals. Like they notice it, but they're powerless to stop it. He turns everything into a musical number. So like he's, and at the end of the, I gotta show you the end of the episode.
God needs therapy in this.
I gotta show you the end of the episode. It's good, but so what they get to is that like Lucifer, the main character, he gets angry and points out that like God just doesn't understand like what's going on. Like he's lived down here. He's started to understand humans, and that God living up and at this really, really high level, he doesn't understand what's going on. Yeah. So God makes a point that he like something's been going wrong. Like he can't quite control his all powerful might like he used to, and so to try and understand, he makes himself mortal, makes himself into a human for like a period of time, and they go on and they have, because it's a cop show, so they have like investigations and things, and it all relates. They do this very I mentioned Californian culture a lot like last time, and do they ever like they ever ham it up, because everything in the show relates back to how somebody is having some interpersonal issue or some mental issue that they have to work through, or some family issue or something like that. And whatever murder they're solving, it always ties back into whatever interpersonal issue is going on between like the main cast of characters. Yeah. I don't know. It's just, I'm trying to think of some of the major things, but the way they resolve it too is also very good, because it ends ironically with God deciding that yes, he has become kind of out of touch with this plane of reality, and he's going to move on into like another dimension, which sets up what I presume is the next season, a civil war between the angels, and it actually does happen at the end of the series, and it ends up being like a really it's none of it's grounded in like anything from, like, it's all very, very...
It's all pure fiction, yeah.
Yeah, it's if somebody read the Spark Notes of the Bible and then decided they were going to make a TV show about the main characters in it. But that being said, I thought it was handled pretty well. Kind of sparse on...
I mean, you could say that, Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat was technically a musical. So, I mean, there's that tentative link. Why are you looking at me like that?
The dead silence was a stare. I don't know. I ended up enjoying it, but I enjoyed the whole series. Season 2 and 3 got very dry, but I think Netflix has done a good job with it. And again, the things that normally grate me about like a lot of modern TV shows, especially ones on Netflix, the fact that they just have to insert California into everything. Not California the place, but California the people. It makes sense in this show because it's set in LA, so I can be like, California, you're such weirdos, and then move on.
Have they gone to like a snapshot of Russia or anything at this point?
Russia? What?
Yeah, like, has it gone anywhere outside of California?
They had one episode set in Vegas.
Oh, okay, so basically just another version of California.
No, God, no. Vegas is not California.
Well, I mean, like the...
So...
I don't know.
In California...
I don't want to say anything that will be mean.
Oh, I'll say plenty of things that are mean. In California, everyone is very whiny, and everyone needs help. In Vegas, everyone needs help, but no one will admit it.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely similarity. I mean, it's not that far of a stretch.
Yeah, but the help is different.
It's not like California and Boston.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's a fair point.
Yeah, so I mean, so they haven't actually gone and seen like an entirely different part of the world and see what's happening over there. Whether there are angels and demons over in Russia.
No. All the angels and demons
controlling Putin.
They're all the angels
Is
and
Putin
demons.
the devil?
No, all the angels and demons. They're all in L.A.
Oh, why the fuck would you go to L.A.?
Los Angeles.
Go to Washington in the least.
The name of the city is The Angels in Spanish.
So?
Los Angeles. I'm just
Does that
saying.
mean they're confined to one city on Earth? That's stupid, Kaiser. That's stupid.
I know.
There's a town called Hell. Why isn't Lucifer there?
It's the whole original premise was he wanted to leave Hell because he was bored of being there. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to be there in the first place.
I'll always remember there was a news article when Hell, the town, literally froze over.
I have a
and everyone's
picture.
like, yay!
Yeah, I have a picture of the sign covered in snow.
Uh,
Oh my god. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to dwell on it too long because most of this segment we talked, and I do want to get on to talking about Red Rising after this. That's the book we're going to be talking about, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that.
lots of books.
But just to kind of summarize, they handled it better than I feared, and I did really enjoy that last season. And I don't know if the series is over or if there's going to be more to it, because they kind of did have a big climactic battle right at the end between the angels, and it ends in quite dramatic fashion. So I'm not sure if the series is over, or if they're going to try to squeeze a season 6 out of it. But it's good.
I wonder if they got the same backlash that Bad Omens got. From the religious community, where they were like, this isn't what actually happened.
I wonder. Because, they actually do, aside from the fact that they have all of the, higher beings, being Californians in LA, they actually do get things fairly accurate to how, like, the Bible stories actually happened. Like, they do quite a few biblical references, and they do them right in that they're actually quoting what is said to have happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'd be interesting to look up. Maybe I'll look up a little bit more about that and see if any of that happened.
To be fair, I don't think it could be any further. Like, in Good Omens, it is Good Omens, not Bad Omens, I think.
I know it is Bad Omens. I'm 90% sure.
Because I think I keep saying Bad Omens, and I think it's wrong.
I think it's Bad Omens. I really do think it's Bad Omens.
The Adam and Eve scene.
Yeah.
The good angel gives Adam his sword, and the Ripley. I was about to say Ripley. Goes over to the angel and he's like, are you sure that was a good idea to give this guy your flaming sword of holy justice? And you can just see in the background this Adam is just like stabbing a dude. Which is probably something that, a lot of people would have a problem with.
Yeah.
Obviously it was for comedy.
I will say they treat things... Oh, they do make Eve a lesbian in this show.
Oh, really?
Well, bisexual.
Okay. Fair enough, I guess. I mean, they kind of can't make her...
Yeah. Adam doesn't show up,
Because,
but Eve actually escapes heaven because she's bored in one episode. And then...
And I'm not saying, before anyone jumps down my throat, I'm not saying that she can't be gay. I'm saying that in the story, she's like the ancestor of everyone on the planet, so in theory, she must have given birth or something.
Well, yeah, and they make a point in the episode of her saying something, well, essentially just being like, well, there was no one else.
That's fair enough.
Because they do, like, I don't know, every time they bring up... I worry, because most of the time when religion is brought up in modern movies or TV shows, it's treated very derisively. It's treated as, silliness, or it's, mocked or ridiculed or something like that. But this show actually does a very good job of treating it fairly. And sort of, I don't know, it just... I'm a fan of how they handled themselves throughout the show. And I say that as somebody who is Catholic. I mean, yeah, it's maybe I'm just like so accustomed to having faith mocked in media that it's just a breath of fresh air when that isn't being actively done.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Red Rising time.
Yeah, I know. I'm really excited to talk about the book. All right. I'm not even going to draw this out. No final thoughts. Let's just end this. This is going to be the end of segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast. Thank you all for listening. We are going to move on to segment 3, where we will talk about a book that I loved so much I finished it in a week. Thank you all for listening. You'll hear us again momentarily for segment 3. Did you say Shibuya? Sorry. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast.
He wins! Kevin!
Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. We're on segment 3, our wild card, and this week it is a book review. We are Blue told me to read this book years ago, and I finally got around to it. The reason it took me so long is I was listening to it on Audible, and I started a book series which I've talked about on this podcast, which took me a while to get through because it turns out there were 2 trilogies. And now that I've finished those, I've moved on to this one. The book, Red Rising, and it is excellent. Like, I started this book late last week, and I've already finished it and moved on to the second book, which I'm 10 chapters into the second book. It's just... And I listened to the audiobook, too, just because I'm already in the middle of way too many physical books. So, excellent book. It's sort of sci-fi, political, philosophical. It's got a little bit of everything. So I'll do a quick plot synopsis, and feel free to jump in at any point to talk about it.
Well, I was thinking, should we do it like just in chronological order, the events? I mean, the up till the point where he leaves the mine, that's like tutorials. We don't have to talk much about that. That's just explaining the characters.
But that context is very important, I feel.
It is.
So let's do that then. I'll summarize a part, and then we'll discuss. I'll summarize a part, and then we'll discuss.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the rare instances where we've both read this book. Well, obviously, since he recommended it to me.
Many times.
So,
as in, I've read it many times. Good.
So the book opens up, and you're following Darrow, who is he's a character who lives in a mine deep below the surface of Mars, and it's established that they're mining and trying to pull out helium to terraform the atmosphere and trying to make Mars livable. They're pioneers out there, and they're suffering through this, and they have a very rigid caste system, with people above them to try and make sure that essentially anyone who's out in the universe there, any set of lungs needs to have a purpose, essentially, and to make sure that resources aren't consumed. So he holds the rank in his drilling crew of Helldiver, which is a person who operates... It's essentially like a forward scout for the main drill. So he's the one who's, drilling way ahead of everyone else. He has to risk, being hit with any sort of tectonic action, magma, pockets of gas that can blow him away.
Sorry.
Bless you.
Ironically. And the I can't remember what they're called, the worms.
Oh yeah, pit vipers.
Pit vipers.
Yeah, so there are indigenous life forms deep within the rock that can jump out, and very, very venomous that they have to worry about drilling into or
especially
encountering.
The children.
Yeah. The young pit vipers, because the older ones will just bite you and then try to eat you. The younger ones haven't learned control yet, and so they'll just bite you and empty their venom into you and kill you pretty much instantly. Or they'll burrow into you and lay their egg. Let's not dwell on this too much. So it's established that there are many different drilling clans in their community, and each clan has a quota to meet, and whoever meets the highest, not only passes the quota but gets the highest level, gets special privileges. They get extra food, they get extra booze, they get extra cigarettes.
Luxuries like silk and stuff.
And luxury clothing, exactly. And it's also established that the other clans are a bit more desperate, and so it's not uncommon to have, wives and daughters go off and sell their bodies to these, either the ones that are more successful or to the guards to make sure that, or to get food and medicine and things for their children or their families. So it's
another NHS.
Yeah, it's established to be an extremely rough and extremely brutal society, but again, it's all couched in the fact that this is a necessity to make sure that they're going to be able to live and establish a surface civilization on Mars, because Earth is overcrowded and the resources are used up and blah blah blah. And the caste system is based on like a color. Like you're like the red caste is the lowest, and that's what he is. He's part of the red caste, the miners. There's the gray caste, who are like the guards and police, and they mention a few others. The gold caste is the highest of the high. They're the top of the society, and they very rarely see them because they very rarely come down to the mines to talk to them. Then there's also, like, I think one guy is like a green or a brown or something. He's an administrator.
So I think brown are like kind of janitor class. Blue is tech class. Pink.
But hold on, we don't know about
Sorry.
them yet.
True.
We don't know about
Sorry.
them yet.
It's like Pikmin.
Yeah. So anyway, but the point being, that's how they do it, and there are different things, and it's established that like the classes are physically distinct from each other. Like the red caste tend to be like thinner and more scrawny, and have like they're
built for manual labor.
Yeah, they're built for manual labor, but not longevity, because he describes his uncle at one point as an old man of 35. Like, so the implication being that like you're not going to live much longer past that. Like he's a man grown and married and thinking about children, and he's 16 in the book. He's got a wife named Io. Anyway, so he knows, because he's been counting, that he's won the laurel, he calls it, because he's hit his quota and surpassed it, and beaten all the other teams. But at the banquet where they give it out to the same team they give it out to every year. And then he realizes at that point it's fixed, and he's furious. And his wife talks him down and calms him down, and she sneaks him away to like this underground garden, which is...
No, it's actually on the surface, I think.
It isn't actually.
They look up and see the...
It's
stars.
artificial.
Is it?
I think it's artificial. Well, it's under a bubble at the very least, because at that point he doesn't realize what the big revelation that comes later. I may be misremembering this. So when I read physical books, I tend to retain things a lot better. When I listen to audiobooks, some of the details get fuzzy for me.
You could be right. Like I said, it's been 2 years.
But either way, at this point, he goes up and there's like a small garden, essentially. And it's a garden that's exclusive to the Greys. But I believe it's still underground. But in like a bubble, like an artificial garden underground. But it's not for Reds. Anyway, they go up there, they bang, and they head back down. And I say that crassly, but honestly, they've got... Like, him and his wife have this very sweet relationship early on. And they go down, but they get caught. And so they're both sentenced to be whipped because they're not supposed to be up there. They've violated the caste system. And they reiterate over and over that their society is like... Obedience is a necessity so that they can terraform Mars, and so that they're the pioneers. They have to make these sacrifices so that the rest of the population can get there, and they'll be heroes after this once all the toil and sacrifice is done. Now, when they're being whipped, it's noted that this just happens to be the day that a gold is down inspecting the mine, this particular mine. Not only any particular gold, but the gold who is the overseer, the arch-governor of the entire planet. And his wife takes the opportunity, because she's a bit of a, like...
Darrow's wife, that is, not the arch-governor.
Yeah, sorry, Darrow's wife, the main character's wife. She has a rebellious streak in her, and she sings a song that they are not supposed to sing. It's a song of rebellion, essentially.
About how the gold ruled with iron chains.
Yeah. I don't
So
remember
it's the
the
gold
words
that
to
won't
the
sing
song,
about
but
it.
if you've ever seen Les Mis, the, what is it?
That's what put the hanging tree in my head.
Oh, yeah,
the other day.
Hanging Tree.
It's
Yeah,
because it's
that's
very
it.
similar.
It's
Yeah.
Hanging Tree from Hunger Games, yep. Or
The
the
Reds have a kind of religion.
hold on, the one I'm thinking of is I want to remember the lyrics before I forget. It's the do you hear the people singing the song of angry men? The one from Les Mis.
Les Mis, yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go on. They have a kind of religion.
Yeah, so they believe there is a kind of a reaper who guides you onto an afterlife.
Yeah, beyond the veil, as they say.
That's the veil. And yeah, it's a bit kind of a sadder song than the one in Les Mis. It's a lot more. Da, da, da,
It's so good, and in the audiobook version, they actually sing it at the end of the book. Oh, so good.
Yeah, very touching moment. So the wife is being
swings. The Reaper swings. Yeah, no, sorry. That I remember that line once you said they talk about the Reaper.
Well, no, it's the Reaper swings and it's the Reaper sings, I think.
Oh, dude, is it different? Maybe I couldn't hear what the guy's accent.
It's not.
But yeah, still good.
But yeah, so she starts singing this in front of... Wait, this is your job.
Sorry, she sings it, and it's a death sentence, so they hang her. Or she's sentenced to hang.
No, that was very abrupt.
Well, I realized that
sentence, so
we have a lot to get through.
Go.
So I'm not doing that entirely. It's a longer scene than that. And they do make a point throughout the first chapter that they allow the family members to pull the legs of the people who are being hanged to properly break their neck. Because, so a lot of people don't realize this. When somebody was sentenced to hanging, the whole idea behind the trap door is they would fall and the rope would break their neck. So the death was instantaneous. They didn't swing up there choking.
No.
But in low Mars gravity, Mars has a significantly lower gravity than Earth. So they have the family pull them because otherwise they'd just be up there choking, and it would be a very painful, brutal death. And so he has to go up there and pull his wife's legs to break her neck. Again, brutal. And it again reinforces how harsh and rough this society is. But over and over, even in his own mind, in his own ruminations, Darrow is going like, this is necessary because of we need to terraform Mars. We're sacrificing all of this for the future of mankind. Anyway, so him and his grief, he goes up and he does something else, which is illegal. Her body is meant to be left up there because... So she actually sings the song on the while she's being hung too, and they allow that for her last words. And so he goes up and he wants to bury her, which is also illegal. She's supposed to be just left up there to rot, as an example. And on his way up there, his uncle doesn't necessarily try to stop him, but just hands him a flask and has him drink it, and then he goes up, cuts his wife's body down. And then they sentence him to hang. And he does, but he doesn't die. Because whatever his uncle gave him was something to make his heart stop. And then somebody moved him into a tunnel. And he wakes up and there are people picking him up and moving him. And they turn out to be a terrorist group that was mentioned earlier. The Sons of Ares, essentially Reds who are trying to rebel against the Order. And they take him up, and he meets one of their faction leaders, who reveals that there's a lot more. Like, he brings him up to the actual surface, and he sees that there are cities, there are gardens, there's no domes. The atmosphere has been terraformed. There's greenery out on the landscape. Like, he sees all these other colors he didn't know about. The pinks Blue mentioned, the blues, there are greens, there are browns, there are violets. All these different colors of caste, which he didn't know existed. The golds are still on top, and they still, float about in their hover boots. They've got, bottles of wine. They're going for a picnic out in a garden. And
although there are two kinds of gold.
There are, and that is revealed to him next, is that, like, within the castes, there are castes. So they have what are called the low reds and the high reds. The low reds are the ones like him, who know nothing about what goes on the surface. They just mine in that society with that same lie. There are the high reds, which are the reds that live above the surface, and they act as, janitors and laborers and, street sweepers or whatever. And then amongst the golds, there are what are called the pixies, which are just the golds that are indulgent. They live their lives in luxury. They flirt, they eat, they drink, and they do practically nothing. Then there are, like, what are called the iron golds. The golds who are, like, they're warriors, they're commanders, they're people who are, military, they're politicians, there are bureaucrats, which are referred to as, like, the copper golds or the bronze golds or whatever. So that's the first bit. Do you want to, like, stop and, do a little chat about that before we move on?
I mean, I feel like we can chat as we go.
But any thoughts? I definitely have things to say about that first bit that I haven't yet, so...
Also, I have no doubt that we're not going to get onto the second book, by the way, at all. Because we're like, we just got past the tutorial and we're halfway through the...
We are, and
segment.
I think that... So I'm going to do two things. I think that this is probably going to go over, but second of all, I think that I'm going to publish this as an independent segment on the YouTube channel, just because...
Okay. I mean, maybe wait until we've done all the segments for the trilogy.
Oh, we can stitch them together. That'd be cool. All right, but let's not metagame a little bit too much here.
So the Sons of Ares, your typical group, but they also have higher connections. So Reds are not stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something that's made clear. They're all the classes are physically distinct, and they have some biological and technical modifications depending on your class. But unlike... So a while back I talked about Brave New World, where they have the different classes in that, the gammas and the alphas and the betas and the deltas. Mm-hmm. In that book, they actually physically altered the mental capacity of the lower classes to make them more stupid. They don't do that in this world.
Well...
They make the upper classes more smart, but they don't really alter the lower... So you go on. What were you going to say?
There is... And I'm just going to very briefly brush up against this fact, because it's something that you'll learn later. There are some classes that... There's one in particular I'm thinking of, where they are purposefully born into a Ice Age level history of time. Like, they're born into clans of people who know nothing about technology.
Are you talking about the Obsidians?
Yes.
They
haven't experienced to what level it is yet.
Yeah, it was a guess. That was a guess on my part, because they've alluded to the fact that the Obsidians have a fear of technology. So,
yeah, they're brought up in a very different way to all the other classes. Maybe not the Blues, because the Blues are kind of weird. They have like computer chips in their heads and stuff. But
yeah, sorry, we're kind of talking about like the world in general, but. Yeah. But that first part, like, what were your thoughts on it? Like, did you...
It's very emotional, the first part.
It is. Well,
it's not particularly exciting, but it's very emotional.
Yeah. you really, the author does a very good job of making you really feel like the anguish and struggle. Like,
I mean, he just had to kill his wife. Like, how much more anguished can you be?
yeah,
and it gives him a real drive to do what he does in the rest of the story.
It does, and it's one of those things where I feel like a bit of the weight and a bit of the moral depth might be lost on a lot of modern audiences who don't do too much of a read of history, because like that kind of brutal struggle and life it wasn't uncommon even 200 years ago, even 100 years ago. You had to deal with that sort of like life and death and making a choice and working and stuff like that. We look at it as horrible now, like with our modern luxuries, but
we're not working down in the coal mine.
Exactly.
So.
Yeah. For the people who did that, it was a way of life, and it's not necessarily a way of life that they feel like they need to get away from or something like that. It was just like, I work in the mines because my uncle worked in the mines, and I worked in the mines because my father worked in the mines, and I'm proud of my work. I'm a hill diver. That sort of thing.
Should we get to the next? Because the next bit's a bit fucky, isn't it?
I love the next bit. Well, are you talking about before the? Okay.
I'm talking about before the institution.
You're right. So the next bit, he finds out what his mission is going. Like his they convince him through several means to try to join the Sons of Ares, mainly by showing him all of this and the fact that they've been lied to their entire lives. And the fact that his wife's sacrifice was just so little, right, in the eyes of all of this. Not only have they terraformed Mars, he finds out, but they've terraformed all of the planets, all of the moons. There are colonies stretching out across the solar system, everywhere. And it's implied that even further beyond that, but so far they haven't talked about anything past Pluto, where I am in the second book. But yeah, so through this way they convince him and they give him a mission, and he honestly says in the book that he would rather just be given a bomb or a gun and go out as rage and then blow something up, but they give him a different mission, because he passes a test that allows him to join them, and the mission, so he's established as being very clever despite his low origins. And so they bring him to somebody who's called a carver, a violet. The violets are like the entertainers, the artisans, the musical and creative people in the world, the painters, the singers, the dancers, that sort of thing. And he owns like a nightclub, and he has connections with these people. So they pay him a shit ton of money, and he essentially takes him, and over a brutally long series of months, they replace his skin, they replace his eyes, they replace his muscles, they enhance his organs, they enhance his mind, they do all of these things, and they make him into a gold. So his
a process that a lot of people had tried to do previously, and everyone had died. They say there were 92 attempts, and he was the first success, partially because he had been bitten by one of those pit vipers they talked about earlier, and essentially the venom had made his heart more robust because it had to adapt. Because he was the second success.
He was the first success, and they actually in the second book they talk about this. He was the first, and then a colleague made the second one.
The second one was made before him.
Are you talking about Titus?
Yes, in the long run, but they made Titus before they made Darrow. Really?
Okay. In the books, they say after. I just read through this bit, and he says that, Mickey says that Titus was made by a colleague based on his success with him.
Maybe. I could have sworn that Mickey made it off of some notes that he got from... I don't know.
I may be misremembering that, but either way, it's either Mickey learned. Sorry, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. So they make him into a gold. He goes from being like, he's like, oh, I was tall for a red, but he goes from being like, 5 foot something to being like over 8 feet tall, and like he goes from having just like being kind of this lean, wiry muscled person to being this titan of a man who's got like, probably weighs 300 pounds and most of it's muscle. His bone density, they established that, golds can the way that normal humans operate in 1 Earth gravity, they operate in 5 easily. And so in lower gravity, they're basically, they can jump meters into the air and things like that. Their bone density is so hard that they're almost impossible to break. It's like 5 times as dense as like a normal person's. And all of this stuff to basically, so this is what I mean when I say that the casts are different, so different physically.
Yeah.
Like
and also mentally, because he also has lessons.
He does. So, well, first of all, they modify his brain too. They put like implants so that he can like learn faster and, think quicker and things like that. And so, after he's recovered from all the physical trauma of having this done to him, like, because they establish it's excruciatingly painful. So after like they go through the physical trauma, and then they move on, and now he's got to learn to. He's got to train. He's got to like get used to his new body. He's also got to pick up history, philosophy, mathematics, science, all of this stuff that's expected of someone who is a gold, an ambitious gold. And a few times he actually accidentally injures someone because he doesn't know his own strength. Like somebody, does something to him and he gives what he thinks is just like a gentle punch and he dislocates their shoulder. And so this goes on, and he gets through all the training, and then his mission is to go take a entrance exam and join an institute. So there's the highest caste of golds are known as the Peerless Scarred. Essentially, they're people who have made it through this institute and passed, and they have like. They're otherwise perfect, like Greek god-esque faces are scarred with one curved, like scar down the side of their face. So he passes the test, and not only does he pass the test, but he actually has to be audited by essentially this gold bureau to make sure he didn't cheat, because he was essentially one of the upper outliers.
Yeah, top 10% or something.
So he gets into the institute, and then, so before I get into what happens in the institute, let's talk about that. So
okay.
What are your thoughts?
So yeah, he also gets set up with like a really nice apartment and stuff like that
to establish himself as one of the gentry.
Yeah, and he's not entirely used to gold life yet. So he goes to like riding lessons, and this other girl who's also gold like basically laughs at him because he can't ride a horse. Yeah,
it's established she's riding a stallion and he's riding a pony, and he gets thrown by the pony.
Yeah. And so he's still struggling to fit in at this point. But during the test, he displays his new athleticism by managing to even fool another gold who's taking the test. I can't remember what he does, but it's sent with a pencil.
It's this. So the girl is like, she's taking the test and she's tapping on a bracelet. So it's an otherwise quiet room, and she's like pissing him off because she's making this tapping noise, and it annoys him so much. While she's looking away, he very quickly and dexterously jumps or moves his arm, grabs her pencil, her stylus, and hides it up his sleeve before she even notices. And so she looks around bewildered, and no one will give her another stylus. And so she just runs out of the room crying because she can't take the test anymore because she lost her stylus.
But she still passes.
So, no, it wasn't her. She fails.
No,
You're thinking of a different girl.
Because they name her.
No, you're thinking of a different girl. You're thinking of Antonia.
Okay.
But anyway, or at least I don't think she shows up in the book.
Because I'm pretty sure later on she comes up to you and she's like, "Wow, you're a dickhead. You took my
No,
pencil."
you're right. That's Antonia. No,
Yeah.
it's not her. It's another girl in the room.
Right.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. She does come up and tell him he's a dickhead, but that's a different girl. She's a girl that
Right.
saw him do that.
No, the teacher saw him do it.
Yep, but there are two people in the room that saw him do it, and
Okay.
they come up to him after and tell him about it.
Anyway,
I'll
it's
get
not
to
an important detail.
So it isn't an important detail, but it is later because they become major characters. So Antonia she comes up to him and she calls him a cutter as she walks past him out of the test room, which he establishes is she's calling him ruthless essentially because of what he did to the other girl. And then the other person that comes up to him is named Cassius, who is another guy in the room, who says, yeah, "It's good that you did that. I was about to take that girl's eyes out." Or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, fun little anecdote from my younger life. We had to take standardized tests in the U.S. I'm sure you probably had to in school as well. During one of them, one of my friends had a bit of a cold, and he was sniffling like during the test, and it was pissing off a girl like behind him. And she during one of the breaks, she very passive aggressively took like 20 tissues out of a tissue box and then slammed him on his desk, and then went back to her seat. So my friend, and I'm always I love this story. He took all of them at once and just wiped his nose on them once and then threw them all in the trash. And then just turned back at her and was just like, "Thanks." And then continued to sniffle for the rest of the test. Oh, that made me laugh. Anyway, sorry. You were saying?
Well, no. What was I saying?
You were talking about what happened during the test and his interaction with the golds.
Well, no, I'm saying that was kind of a small detail. We should move on because we're already at the 30-minute mark. We're going to have to split this into two for this book.
Are we?
I mean, unless we're going to have an hour-long segment.
We might. I know you have stuff to do in
Yeah.
an hour from now, so I won't keep us still. If it
We'll
does,
go up to the point after the first test.
I think once we get to the Institute, things are going to speed up because
Okay.
quite a lot of events happen, and really there isn't a whole lot of analysis to be done there. But anyway, it's established that there are certain modes of acting, ways of speaking that golds use that reds don't, and that reds use that golds don't. Like, for instance, the reds would swear by saying plotitam, but the golds would swear by saying goritam. Something like that. And that does become relevant in the book. Anyway, they move on. He passes the exam with flying colors, and then he is admitted into the Institute. So they go in, there's a big gathering of all the people. He meets some interesting characters on the train ride over to the opening ceremony, and the guy who hung his wife, the Arch-Governor of Mars, gives a long speech about the fall of democracy and the folly and the need to have natural selection and to be strong because the Golds conquered all of the planet. Oh, that's the other thing. A bit of lore that is established in the book is that the way the current society came up from our modern time, Earth colonized the moon because the moon was the logical place to build ships and colonize the rest of the solar system because it was too costly to build them on Earth and then fly them up out of space, so you have to escape gravity. But the moon has practically no gravity, so. And then the moon was like, well, we're doing all this work, fuck it. And they rebelled and they launched a war against Earth. That was the Golds. And they beat Earth. And so the moon is essentially the hub of civilization in this world. And they established the caste system. And so essentially the current society was founded by conquerors, people who had ventured out from their moon and taken over the rest of the solar system. Anyway, gives the opening ceremony. They go into a underground room. Or not an underground room. They go into a big dining hall, and they, based on their scores, they go into different tables and they talk and chat with each other and socialize and.
Think like Hogwarts.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Hogwarts after the opening ceremony. It has a very... It honestly, it
made
feels...
a far better opening ceremony if what happened next happened in Hogwarts.
Oh my god. Yeah. Can you imagine something... Oh, okay, sorry. I'll say that. I don't want to...
Yeah.
So, they have the opening ceremony. Again, yeah, like Blue said, think like the opening ceremony in the beginning of the first Hogwarts book, or the first Hogwarts movie, if you're like me and didn't read the books. They then go off to bed, and it's soft, and he's like, oh, this isn't harsh at all. This is just nice and easy and relaxed. If this is what the gold thinks is, harsh, then clearly they deserve to be overthrown, and so on and so on. And then, in the middle of the night, like, obsidians break in. They're kind of like the bruisers of this world. Like, they're, 9 feet tall and just nothing but muscle and, purebred warriors.
Yeah, brick shithouses.
Yeah, exactly. And they are beating the ever-loving shit out of him. And he at first is indignant. Oh God, I've been found out and whatnot. But he sees that they're wearing gold rings, and so he's like, oh, this is all part of the test. This is all part of what's supposed to happen. So they beat the fuck out of him. They drag him into a room and throw him naked into a room with one other gold, who's also very indignant about being beaten. And then, one of the people who picked him comes in and goes, okay, only one of you leaves this room alive. Tosses a gold ring on the floor and then leaves. And the person he has to fight is somebody he met on the train who he, seems very nice and sweet and a good person.
Probably the nicest gold he's met so far. Exactly.
But he realizes that, and so he tries to tell him, just walk away, just leave, give me the ring and get out of here. And the guy's like, no, I can't disappoint my house, I can't disappoint my family, I have to. And he squares up to fight. And that guy is a trained. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, so this guy's called Julian, right?
Yeah.
The brother of Cassius. I'm pretty sure they know that at that time.
They do. Yep.
And Julian and Cassius come from probably the second highest noble family on the planet of Mars.
The rival family to the Arch-Governor of Mars, in fact.
And so the rite of passage of them completing this institution is a 100% has to happen, because they cannot be seen to be embarrassed. They have to be the strongest of the strong. Even though Julian is the poet type. He is the what's the guy from Sobrante, our little brother?
Oh, fuck, I don't remember his name.
That guy.
Yeah, the little bitch from Sir Bronte.
Yeah, but Julian's less, you don't want to punch him in the face quite as much.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
So Julian doesn't back down. And, neither does this guy, because he has to complete his mission. He's still, a sleeper agent. And he's still committed to his mission, and so he's not as elegant as Julian, who tries to do some kind of a martial arts kind of thing. He ends up just wailing on him, stunning him and then collapsing his sternum with a really powerful punch.
Yeah.
And then he walks bleeding and broken from the room. It clearly traumatized by the fact that he just had to kill someone. The whole experience, it's hammered in how much this really traumatizes Darrow. So he gets out to the room, and he meets one of his closest, a person who becomes one of his closest confidants throughout the whole series. The poet guy, I can't remember his name for some reason.
Oh, yeah, fuck.
Yeah, it's not.
I can't remember his name.
There's a very poetic character, and it might come to me, but he becomes a very close confidant throughout the entire series, and he and the main character kind of confide in each other, and that guy says that after going through that, he kind of suspects that there were a ton of people who they admitted these people just to have them killed. Exactly. Yeah. They were people who, and it is confirmed later that the top 1% of the people who applied and took the test, they get in, and the bottom 1% of the people who applied, they get in. And the bottom 1% are just there to get killed.
But not all of the top 1% won their matches.
Exactly. And I think one of the guys who is the guy who tells them about this tells them, like, every now and again Darwin has a surprise. And like one of the most perfect, one of the highest scorer. The highest scorer. He ends up dying getting his throat crushed by one of the people who was a low scorer. And so a few low scorers make it through, but mostly it works the way it intended. And it's also revealed a little bit later in the book that like the Golds are just as brutal on themselves as they are to the rest of society, because they have a department of quality control that ensures that thinks that the perfect ratio is about 13.12% of all Golds should die before 1 year old. And they think that there's a certain percentage of Golds that need to die in the Institute. They literally have taken natural selection as like a core doctrine of their society.
Yeah.
So like even though they treat the lower castes extremely brutal, they treat each other just as brutally.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes like a common theme, which is why when I was talking to you last night before I'd read a little bit further in the second book, I was starting to get disappointed in the way the story was going. Mm-hmm. Because Darrow was starting to really understand that. That like
Darrow's not that far from Darwin. I think maybe that's what they were going with.
Maybe. So like you said, I think you're right. We're gonna have to break this up into 2 parts. And we can continue on with it next time, but I do think, because we're already at 40 minutes, but at this point in the book, right after that big reveal has happened, like we had 2 big reveals. One, that the society is a lot bigger than he was led to believe, and 2, that the Golds aren't just all luxury and decadence. They're actually brutal conquerors who are just as brutal on themselves as they are on the lower castes.
Also, we should just discuss Cassius quickly.
We should, yeah, because that's a big one. Yeah. So we're gonna stop the plot synopsis here. We'll discuss what we've talked about so far and a few of the finer points, and then we'll end this segment. And we will pick this up either during next week's media segment or potentially on another segment 3 where we can summarize the last half of the book. So yeah, Cassius, want to take it away there?
So as we know, Darrow brutalized Cassius's brother, but no one knows who was set up against who.
They purposely obscure it.
Yeah, so that like Darrow knows that he killed Cassius's brother, and Cassius is kind of warmed up to Darrow because Darrow's clearly a bit of a fucking badass. Yeah, and Cassius could use good men by his side.
Another alpha like he.
And so Cassius goes a bit like nutso when he sees that his brother hasn't arrived, and he's like, "All right, which of you fuckers killed my brother?"
He very threateningly says, "Maybe we should all play a game. I'll tell you who I killed, and you can all tell me who you killed. I killed such and such. He was someone that I knew from a boy. I killed him the proper way, one quick strike, and it was over."
Yeah, and so that becomes an ongoing thing in their relationship where they are good friends, but there is this constant dark secret hanging over Darrow's head.
And the thing is, like, Darrow is not portrayed as a heartless person, because every single time Cassius brings it up, he clearly feels guilty about it, because he says, "And there it is. He said his name again, Julian, and I feel the darkness rise in me." Because, even though these people are his enemies, the people who have oppressed his people, his fellow Reds, the people who killed his wife, he has a remarkable degree of perspective.
Yeah, playing the long game, which you see quite a bit in the part that you've literally just read in the second book. It's all about playing the long game.
Yeah. And there's a lot of moral complexity too, because as he goes through, and you'll see this when I summarize the rest of the book the next time we get back to this, he makes very intimate relationships with the rest of the golds that he's with, and he starts to see them not as brutal oppressors high above him, who are just faceless, nameless, a thing, a concept. He starts to see them as people, and that causes a lot of moral strife within him.
Yeah, that causes him quite a few problems, more so than, like, okay, him being allies with, or him having certain friends definitely gives him benefits. But every one of those friends has this, at least presently, has this massive caveat of he can't tell them the truth.
Well, right, because if they ever find out he's a Red, it's established that his family, his entire clan, would be wiped out, and he would be tortured and tortured and tortured, and then killed.
Yeah. But yes. John went up.
Sorry, I know we've gone over.
Right.
Yeah, so just to point out before we go on, the book has a very... It surprised me at multiple times. At the beginning, I thought it was going to be just like a rebellion story about the miners rising up, and it wasn't. There was more to it than that. And then I thought it was going to be about him, working with this terrorist group, but it wasn't. They made him into a gold, and now he's an infiltrator. And then I thought that the Gold Society was going to be just this decadent kind of paradise that he was going to be disgusted with and then have no problem taking down. But it wasn't. It was a brutal Darwinian, thing. And then this institute, I thought it was going to be like a schoolyard sort of thing, but it wasn't. It was this brutal training ground. And there's a lot of other surprises that happen throughout the book, all the way up until the end. And they continue. Subversion of expectations is something that is, I think, overused in a lot of modern media. This book uses it right. It's not just it's not just surprising you for the sake of surprising you. The surprises have meaning and purpose. They're showing you as the reader. They're revealing things to you as they're revealed to the main character.
Yeah, and they change so many things in the society. You can't think of this society as anything like something that we would see as society in our own real world. I mean, you can certainly look back at history and see a lot of similarities, particularly with Romans.
Yeah.
And just survival of the fittest is a big theme running throughout it. But also the gods, all the teachers are named after different Greek gods.
Yeah, they are. And they do that quite a bit. The author takes a lot of effort to make sure that you as the reader understand that this isn't just a brutal, oppressive regime that's just brutal and repressive because it wants to be. It establishes that this is a thriving and very functional society. It's morally abhorrent to our current eyes, and people do suffer in it. But it is powerful. And so it really kind of challenges you to try and think. It challenges. It puts morality against rationality a lot, and it does it in a lot of very clever ways. It's such a good book. Just to give it and I'm sorry it took so long to read it, Blue.
No.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. And we will get on to this. We are going on. We're coming up on 2 hours for the podcast, so I think we're going to have to end it there. There will be a part 2 to this, probably next week, just so it's still fresh in my mind. I can do a proper.
I imagine there's going to be at least 6 parts to this in the long run for the trilogy.
Yeah, so look forward to that because I'm already partway through the second book. I'll try to slow down how fast I'm reading through it to actually be able to to spread these out. We don't want to do a book review segment like 6 podcasts in a row. Or maybe we do. Who knows? If you guys enjoy this, let us know.
Also, next week we can, because it's another one of the wildcard ones next week.
Yeah, I think next week we'll definitely do the second part of this because
we'll finish Red Rising.
Yeah, either in the media or in the third segment. But anyway, I'm not gonna hammer this on too long. Thank you all for listening. This has been episode 46 of the TMCJ podcast. We hope you will tune in again soon.
Don't be an oppressive race.